Hello and welcome to week 2 of your classroom management class. This week we are looking strictly at the classroom, the environment, and how you can set that up for success for your students. So what does that mean when I say classroom environment? Well, there's 3 different aspects of a classroom, and you can truly feel how a classroom is run based on just stepping into a classroom. So first is the physical, which is the layout, the lighting, the temperature, all of those things, how it looks. Then you have the social aspect. So those relationships among the teacher and student, as well as student to student. So how are those routines and procedures and the culture and the morale? Then you have the emotions. Do the students feel heard? Are they respected? And same with the teacher. Is the teacher respected? You can learn so much about a classroom in just the first 30 seconds based on how it feels. So now we are going to go into the physical design. This is what I feel like most people spend a lot of time on, just because that's what you see. So natural light improves student performance. Personally, I hated to have on both sets of lights. We had 2 light switches in my classroom, and so I would only have on one. And it was, if a student turned on both, everyone was like, "Wah!" But I always had the windows or the blinds open. Sorry, at my first school, I would open up the windows on nice days, just because that natural light, it's so much better than the overhead light. Temperature, and I would allow students to wear jackets as long as they were dress code at one of my schools, just because if you are cold, that's all you're going to think about. Then air quality. You can't do a whole lot about that, but I feel like since COVID, they have put in more air purifiers. And then acoustics and noise control. Just making sure that, one, they can hear you. If there's a loud fan, you just have to take into consideration all things. But for me, I would always have background noise whenever the students were working independently. That way, if somebody got up, it's not as distracting. Another particular aspect of design and the physical portion of your classroom is just the features and elements. So a big push right now is flexible seating. Now, in your first few years, flexible seating is hard with your classroom management because you have to manage those students when they're sitting in different things. I would almost say flexible seating as in more of your seats. Are you going to allow them to stand up if they are doing independent work? I did that. They knew that they were able to sit on the ground or do stand up or sit in their chair differently whenever they were doing independent work or group work. But when it was me lecturing, no, you're sitting in your seat watching. But I also didn't lecture, but maybe 10 minutes a day. That was just my style of teaching. Color, aesthetics, choice, and connection. So do you have those cues around the room? Is your classroom inviting? I am a little bit of an OCD person, so I liked everything to kind of coordinate. I did not per se have a theme, but I did have where all of my math stuff was blue, all of my science stuff was green, and I really went in on that. And then making sure that your visuals, and I simply had just anchor charts around my room. I did not have like posters of do a great job or all of those. I had it where it was strictly content of what they were learning. And we'll learn more about this. Then the social and emotional component. So making sure that you build that trust within your students. So do they feel seen? Do they know that they're cared about? Do you have that mutual respect between each other? Then having routines that are fair and predictable because students thrive on structure. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to be that strict teacher. Well, when you are that strict teacher, it's not so much that you're mean, you just have very clear expectations and routines, and students thrive on that. You're able to do a lot more things with them because they have those clear expectations. We did science investigations 3 to 4 times a week. Well, if I didn't have those strict instructions and procedures, we couldn't do it. But my students loved to be in my room and wanted to be involved. So we had to have those, and they just thrived with them. Student involvement in voice and choice. So you can say things a particular way that will help students design your rules and your expectations. That way they have that ownership and engagement, and you can have their voice be heard, but it's still along the same lines of how you know you want your class to be run. Like I said last week, rules are meant to be broken. So I never said these are our classroom rules. We had expectations and procedures. So they weren't meant to be broken. And my students loved that we didn't have rules, right? The health and well-being. So physical health, air quality, all of that. Most of the time, this will not be an issue. But mental health, making sure that when they walk into that classroom, they feel safe. There's not a lot of chaos. They can feel if you are stressed, then they're going to be stressed. So you don't want it to be chaotic. So less chaotic, less stress, and they're more willing to participate, be engaged, and be attentive. So impact on attention, concentration, behavior. So poor environment, like they can't hear, the lighting, all that, they're not as effective in their learning. So you really want to pay attention to how is it. Sit at the very beginning of the year whenever I'm setting up my classroom and I'm doing a different arrangement of desk, I will sit in some of the seats and make sure they can see the board. Make sure that they're not too close to the wall where it feels cramped. Sit in those desks. Make sure that they are as comfortable in that classroom as you are. Excuse me, I'm sorry. All right. Another thing is practical tips for teachers. Assess your current classroom. So looking at those, really think about, is this a place that I would want to come to learn? Or is this just a hangout place? Or is this feel a certain way? Use flexible seating, and that could be just the arrangement of your desk. Maybe you have on the side, I always had like a trapezoid table that students could go and work together on something. Or I'd be like, hey, you two go work on this over there. And then I would also have a back table where I'm 5'10", and so my legs do not fit under a normal teacher desk. So I just had a kidney table as my desk. And so I was always telling kids, come back here and let's do blah, 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 blah. But having that flexibility to have them get up and go different places will help their engagement. Also, we have seen on Pinterest and Google, all of these places, these beautiful classrooms that look like a home. Well, how functional are those? Do they really support learning? You want to have your classroom full of things that students are learning. My walls lined with anchor charts, which is over here. But having those decorative things is not really purposeful. Establishing those clear expectations and routines is what you need to work on literally the first 2 weeks. The first 3 days, yes. But every single day of the next 2 weeks, you should make sure that those are being utilized. Then involve students in choosing layout or design. I didn't do this as much just because I knew how I needed my classroom to be set up so that we could do science labs and all of that. But if they cannot see or they work better at the front of the room, allow them to have that voice. And then reduce clutter. Make sure that everything is supporting their learning. If you have stuff everywhere, they're not going to be able to pay attention. And the last is challenges and constraints. So while you can dream up this beautiful classroom, let's be honest, there's always some sort of restriction. And here I've listed them out. But at my last school, we had a huge HVAC. Like, it was almost looked like a closet on the side of our classroom. I couldn't move that, but I couldn't put kids like where they were against the wall because they would be right there and you had to open it. It was very annoying, but I had to make sure that students weren't too close to it, or when it would cut on, it would be a little loud. And so it was something that I had to overcome. But again, is it ideal? No. But can you work through it? Yes. But it did take me a few times of rearranging desks. Some students couldn't be there or over that way because of hearing, all of the things. So there will always be challenges, whether it's the HVAC unit or where the plugs are, or where you have to hook up in order to have your computer so it goes to the board. There's so many different factors that you can dream up this huge, beautiful classroom, but just know that realistically it might not happen that way. So this week you are kind of dreaming up your classroom and what you would want it to be, that ideal classroom. So have fun with it, research. But if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.